In this video, I'm going to show you how to cut a mat for an artwork and mount it without using any fancy matting materials. So all you need for this are a couple clamps, a ruler. Thicker usually works better. Mine has cork on the back so that it doesn't slip. I've got an Exacto knife. You can use a utility knife as well. Pencil, scissors, a beveled mat cutter. This one's pretty ancient. And then some extra blades to go with the mat cutter because a dull blade always makes a terrible cut. And then lastly we have some hinging tape, and that is how we are going to attach our mat to our foam core and attach our artwork to the foam core as well. So to start with, I am going to figure out the size of my artwork and then figure out how big my mat board and foam core should be. So I'm just going to use this piece that I had made from a previous video, and I'm just going to measure where I want the window of my mat to be. So it's not going to be this whole piece, it's going to get cut in just a little bit. And I'm just going to write it on my foam core here, so it's about 7.5 inches tall. I'm just going to double check. Okay, 7.5 inches tall by about 7 3/4 inches wide. So now what I need to do, now that I have that measured out, I'm going to set this aside. I am going to do some math and figure out how much of a border I want around my artwork. So how wide is my frame going to be? So usually I do about 3 inches on each side. It depends on the style that you're into. It could be 2 inches, could be 4 inches, could be somewhere in the middle. I don't have enough foam core and mat board to do 3 inches around, so I'm just going to do a 2-inch border around here. So 2 and 2 equals 4, so I will add 4 inches to both of the numbers for my window size. So that gives me 11.5 by 11 3/4. And this is going to be our frame size. So this is our window. This is our frame. So what I'm going to do now is measure out the frame size of my foam core and my mat board, and I'm going to cut it down. Now that I have these lines drawn out, I need to cut them. So what I'm going to do to ensure a straight line is I'm going to take my ruler. Generally you want to have a ruler that fits the width of your table, so it goes all the way across so you can clamp it down. So I'm lining up my ruler right along the edge of the line I drew, and then I'm just going to clamp my ruler onto the table. Double check to make sure that you're in the right position, and then we're going to cut our foam core. Try not to do it all in one pass, especially with foam core. It's a little thick, so try and do it in maybe 2 passes, just so that you aren't pulling the foam in the inside. And the sharper the blade, the better. And then we'll repeat the process on the other side. Alright, so now we have our foam core cut down. We'll do the exact same thing with the mat board. Alright, now that we have our foam core and our mat board cut down, now we're going to measure out the window. So we see here the window is 7.5 by 7 3/4. The easiest way to measure out the window now that we have the frame size is to just measure in. So we decided we were going to have a 2-inch border, so I'm just going to measure 2 inches on every side and just measure that out and draw some lines. Alright, I'm going to line up my ruler with the lines that I've drawn, and I'm going to keep my ruler on the outside edge from where I'm cutting. And I'll clamp it down nice and tight. So my mat cutter, I just put a new blade in. You'll notice here there is an engraved line, and we want this line to line up with the start and stop points that we've drawn. Usually I start just a tish before, just to make sure that I get my corners cut. Make it like a 1/16 of an inch at most, really a small amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to push the blade down. It's very important that you are putting some weight into this so that your mat board and ruler don't slide, and so that your mat cutter also doesn't move beyond where it goes. So then I'm just going to push, and I'm going to stop. When I hit that line, disengage and remove our clamps. So you'll see I've got a nice cut here, and I'm just going to repeat the process all the way around. When you're cutting, you want to really make sure you have either a self-healing cutting mat or at the very least some scrap mat board underneath what you're cutting. Otherwise you're going to damage your table or also damage your blade much faster. Alright, so now we have a cut mat. We have our window cut out. If you ever have any points in which the corners or a certain edge didn't go all the way through, just take your Exacto knife, and usually I go from the back and just try and line up with the bevel and just kind of cut across very gently. You can do it from the front, it's up to you, but just very, very carefully cutting those edges. So now what we're going to do is mount our image onto the foam core and then make a window, or a sort of a fold to hold everything together with our linen hinging tape. From here we need our foam core, our mat board, our image. This is linen hinging tape, so it's very strong. It's got a water activated adhesive on the back, and it's archival and acid free. So this is stuff that we use in professional artwork so that our artwork doesn't get ruined over time from tape. So like the yellow masking tape is a big no-no. You don't want to use that. Definitely a good investment. So what I'm going to do is just cut off some pieces. I've got a little jar of water and a brush to activate my tape. And since this piece isn't very big, I don't need a lot of tape. So I'm just going to set some of this aside. Alright, what I'm going to do first is create the part that holds the foam core to the mat board. So I'm going to take my tape and I'm just going to lightly brush some water into it until it's saturated. You'll start to feel it get a little sticky. And then I'm just going to fold this to make sure that everything lines up the way it is supposed to. Generally, we need to just make a couple small adjustments. On my next piece, sometimes I like to just fold the tape in half first so that it's ready to go for the folding later. I'm going to rub the tape in, and then to get the top piece done, I'm just going to lay this flat and line everything up first. And then I'm just going to rub across the top, and that's going to help make the tape stick. It's very important that you keep your hands clean during this point. You don't want to get adhesive residue on the mat board or any like prints from your media or anything. So I'm just going to let that sit for a little bit so it is strong, and then we'll move on to mounting the artwork. Alright, once this is dry, we'll open it back up, and then we're going to figure out the placement for our artwork. So I'm just going to shut the mat over this, and I'm just going to move my artwork around until it's in the location that I want it. Once I've found the right placement, I'm going to just gently lift this back up so it stays in the right spot. And I'm going to make a pencil mark where I want my tape to stay. This is going to help me kind of keep everything in place until I get my tape down. So we're going to create a hinge that's going to hold our paper up without taping onto the front of it. So I'm going to take a longer strip of tape, and I'm just going to wet the bottom half. And then we're going to take the bottom half and stick it to the back side of our artwork. This way, if you need to move anything, or take the tape off or anything, you aren't going to ruin your artwork because it's only on the back side. You can just cut it off, or you can also add water to the back side of the tape and it will de-stick. So I'll line this back up with the marks that I made. And what I'm going to do is take two other pieces of tape, and we're just going to wet them and cover that up. So we're just taping the tape to the tape instead of our artwork, and that's going to be a much safer alternative for removal and any other sort of reasons why, or archival sort of reasons. Alright, once we have these down, then we can close the window again. And there you have it, one matted and backed artwork. Now you can frame it.